Hello and welcome to the Pet Loss Companion Chat. I'm Ken Dolan-Del Vecchio. I'm here with my friend and co-author Nancy Saxton-Lopez. And this is a program that we do every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern to take the information and the knowledge that we put out in our book, The Pet Loss Companion, Healing Advice from Family Therapists Who Lead Pet Loss Groups. We want to get that kind of information out to as broad a group of people as possible so that more people can benefit from the experiences and the comments that we hope to share, and we hope that will be helpful. So if you're listening, if you're watching, please feel free to give comments, to ask questions. And if you're watching the video replay or listening to one of the broadcasts that's audio only, certainly feel free to get in touch with us and send your comments, your questions, your recommendations for future topics. And I'll hand it over to Nancy to get us started.
So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about rituals and memorials. When our pets die, we certainly would like to memorialize them, and we have rituals to do that with. People can have full funerals, and there are quite a few funeral homes, so to speak, that are in the country. They may be in other countries too, we don't know. But even to the point that you have which I've done because I've had, unfortunately, so many, seven little pugs have died. But you can go in and there's actually a plaque with the name, like it is in a human funeral home, with their name. And then you can even buy a casket, you can have a viewing, or you can have and go to a cremation. Some people prefer not doing that. You can have your own memorial service. You can do it if you bury your pet in the backyard or somewhere else, or you can have your own spiritual service. But I do think it's important to have a ritual like it is with our human people that we love, that we've lost. It kind of gives some closure and some connection to that. So besides that, though, you can scatter ashes. Sometimes you may keep your ashes at home if you cremate, or you may take them to places that you and your animal went. There's lighting of candles, going places where your pet was with you. I had a client who goes to Maine. She goes all the way to Maine because that was a very special place for her husband and her cat and her dog. Remembering anniversaries and holidays, of course, and visiting the grave, or talking just with your family or others about, remembering how wonderful that pet was.
Sure. And when you mention rituals, what I always think is a ritual is an experience that goes far deeper than language can. Mm-hmm. So that experience of saying goodbye through whatever means, whether it's burial or releasing balloons or whatever you might do, and maybe having other people around who also had a loving relationship with your deceased pet. And there's something about that kind of experience that both gives a great depth of emotion and also contains the experience of saying goodbye in a way that can help you to move forward. It provides a reference point, if you will, that you can refer to and think about, and often a reference place. There's a place in my yard where I buried Diana, who was a cat who was just really close to me, and so I say hi to her when I go by. I've got coreopsis planted on it, so there's always perennial growth and flowers during the spring and summer, and it's very meaningful. And the way I think about this too is that you can do it different ways for different friends, different animal companions. Well, I've buried a lot of my pets. I have on occasion Also, we've got 2 who we've cremated, and those are 2 of our Chihuahuas. And I do things like I was just showing you beforehand that I have the little urns here, and this is a tuft of hair from Lily. And Lily was a tiny little Chihuahua. She was only 5.5 pounds, and obviously very special to us. And whatever works. And yeah, it's also so important, I think, to include children in rituals. If they're old enough to know what's going on, if they're 4, give or take, depending on their temperament and their personality, it can be a really helpful thing for them to be included, because it helps do for them all the things that it does for adults, to help contain the experience, to help put all your feelings into some kind of bigger than language experience, and then contain it also, and be able to move forward from there, that we had whatever ritual we were going to have, and now we're going to move forward.
What was the movie with Owen Wilson and I think it was Jennifer Aniston with the dog? And at the end, the dog died, and they had the little kids come out with the little notes, at the burial site, and put the necklace on down. I can't remember.
A golden retriever, right? I can't remember.
But that what you were saying about kids, I was like, wow, yeah, because they made little pictures about the dog and little poem, and then they put it in the grave.
Yeah, we had a burial for my son had a kitten who died very, very young, and I believe Eric was maybe like 7 or something like that. And so we had the burial in the backyard. Actually, what had happened was she had gotten into a crawl space in the home, and in that crawl space, people had put decades before perhaps poison for rats.
Oh, that's so sad.
She got really sick. We didn't know what it was. We took her to the vet. She died. But I'll never forget we all wrote cards, and we read the cards to her, and her name was Willie. And I mean, we were all in tears when Eric read the card that he had written to Willie. One of the things he wrote was, "I'm so happy that I had you as a friend. I wish we could have been friends for longer." Really evocative. But it was so meaningful. And then, as you said, we buried like flowers on top of her, and then that's where Willie is. So kind of have a place to visit.
And that's so important, because there's it with you in your heart all the time anyway.
Yeah.
But there's something kind of tangible with that. People got a little crazy with me, because what I've done with my pugs who have been cremated is that they all have a special teapot that fits their personality. And so I have them all out with little pictures and their collars and the Rainbow Bridge, poem, and their paw prints, and some go back so far that there were paw prints. But I mean, Rosie was our last one, and she's in a teapot, an English teapot of roses. So, but people look at me and say, well, isn't somebody going to, take your teapot and use it? I said, no, I don't think so. But it doesn't matter really what you do. It's your relationship and how you want to memorialize them, and then to memorialize.
Yeah, and also there are some people who they don't want to do anything. Their pet is deceased, and the vets will generally have a service where they can dispose of your pet's body through whatever means, and they may or may not describe what that is, or do a cremation, either group or individual. And some people don't really care what happened. I worked for a veterinarian. I did an internship when I lived in Rhode Island for one summer, and the veterinarian had a service guy who would come every time they called them. Their freezer or their refrigerator, I think it was full of bodies, and they would take the bodies away. And what they did with them, the way I understand it, is they helped them. They were contributed to the process of making fertilizer, which to me was, well, that's okay, because
Ashes, dust to
that's
dust.
kind of what, I kind of want to go back to the soil myself. I'm very into composting, and that's kind of what I want to do. I want to go back to the earth, but it all depends, right? It depends on what's good for you.
Right. And when I did my internship at a ER specialty vet, I worked with people around their euthanasias, and we would come in and say, what would you like to have done? And
Mhm.
sometimes people were like, no, I'm okay. I don't, she now is dead or he's now dead, and I can walk away from that. So, and that's okay, you
Yeah.
know. However, there are other people who do want to have a full funeral.
Yeah.
Some who just want to go to a cremation, or some that don't want to go to a cremation, but they know that their animal has an individual, cremation, or they don't care if it's with other animals. So it really is, again, it's unique in grieving, but it's unique in how you want to be, at the end of life and death of your animal, and what you want to have happen.
Now, when you say go to a cremation, I'm imagining that you can actually go and be there when it's done. It reminds me of a friend who was married to a person who was Japanese, and he died. And that particular cultural ritual for that family was that they would witness the cremation, and that was part of what they did as part of their culture. And so they would watch the body being consumed by flames in a contained environment. And so it all depends, like what is
Right.
going to help you to feel some kind of closure, beginning of closure, whatever works.
And in our cremations, and all of our dogs have been cremated, you have a private room with a viewing. So there are two windows, and there's a private room, with, you can open up the doors, and they have laid out your animal, which is, they do, and this particular place does an amazing, wonderful job, and they're so kind and they're so considerate, and you can spend as much time as you like. And then when you're ready, you push a button, and you close the door, and then the other window kind of, it defogs. I don't know else to put that. And then what they do is you can see them take out, of the body, and put it on, a belt that will go into the crematory. But that's it. I mean, after that, they close and then you leave.
Yeah.
But I guess in some cultures, you actually do witness the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's talk some about the ways that the ritual and the memorializing doesn't always include the body. It might be, as you
Yeah, of
said,
course.
almost like a memorial table where a little part of a dresser or a hutch. We have the two containers of ashes
Mm-hmm.
on our hutch in the dining room. Let me see if I can. This is
Mm-hmm.
Jack, and they're always in view. And every now and then we go over and take a look at them. And some people save, as you said, their collars, their dog tags, their
Mm-hmm.
special toys, and photograph. We would have people, as you recall, come to the meeting, and they would have what they called an altar
Yes, or
set
shrine.
up.
You can
Yeah,
call
a
it shrine.
shrine or an altar,
Mhm.
and that would have whatever help them to call to mind the memory of their friend. And we had people who did that for every kind of animal conceivable, every kind of
Even a
animal.
hamster.
Yeah, yeah, even a fish in one
That's
case,
right. That's right.
even a fish. And there were others who did things like they would have. There was one person who had a memorial to an animal in the attic above
Oh,
the
I know this one. It
yeah
was Badger. The
above
dog was
the
Badger, right?
bedroom. Yeah, and
Yeah,
and
right.
would kind of just know that he was close. He was
Right.
close at hand.
Exactly.
And so whatever works for you. The thing to keep in mind is sometimes people will feel like, oh, I don't want to do that. That'll make me feel foolish or something like, and then you come to this understanding that whatever helps you
It
to
doesn't
grieve and
matter.
remember is a good thing for you and your family members.
Exactly. So, I mean, you could have a regular headstone. You could
Yeah.
do river stones. You could do a plaque. I mean, a lot of that you can get online. Um, you could talk about, like, you have plants, you have flowers on
Hmm.
Diana's her grave. I planted trees, mostly dogwoods,
Uh,
in memory of
of course.
dogs. You can do pussy willows for cats. I mean, or
Mhm.
any other kind of plant. But people in the group, they would come in, they would have paintings. A lot of
Yeah.
people have their animals formally painted or
Yeah. Yeah.
portrait of, or drawings or any other kind of art. Poems, stories. One
Hmm.
woman wrote a song.
Hmm.
One man, remember the guitar guy? He made guitars and he painted his dachshund on his
I
guitar.
don't remember that.
Yeah.
No, no, but that's great.
Yeah, so he made a white guitar, painted, had his dachshund painted on it.
Wow.
Um,
So his dachshund was with him making music.
that's right. That's right. And I think that really helped him. Um,
Yeah.
Scrapbooks, photo
Yep.
albums, shadow boxes. There are all so many kinds of urns now.
Yeah.
The boxes or urns in a cat shape, a dog shape, all kinds of, maybe even a horse shape, I think I saw online. Ornaments.
Yeah. That's another thing. The ritual at St. Hubert's every year, remembering the animals just around holiday time, where
That's right.
people bring ornaments and yeah.
Names. You would send in the names of your animals who have died, and then they would decorate all the trees, when the
Yeah.
evergreens.
Yeah. Yeah. All different. And there are people often when their pet dies, they don't want to move their bed. They don't want to move their water and food dishes. And so many times we've had that conversation of there's no rush. You
Yeah,
just
you don't
do
have
it.
to do it right away.
Do it you'll know when it makes sense to take that kind of action. You'll know just as when a human being dies, you don't have to get rid of all their stuff and give it away or donate it until you feel ready to do that. And there probably will come a time when you feel ready to do that. And
Mhm.
these kinds of things are often the kind of thing that you can talk through with others who love and respect you. And I must say again, Isabel has a thing about our meetings.
Yeah, she likes to be part of them.
She's singing in the other room. Isabel, what are you doing? What are you gonna do? But one of the things that's newer is freeze drying, right?
Oh
It's an
boy.
option.
Well, yes. Now there are some. It was some years ago, I guess. I was at one of Abbey Glen, Lafayette,
Mhm.
where we go, and at the time, freeze drying had become very popular.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm working with the vet techs and so forth, and we go in the back, and there is a freeze dryer with a Doberman in it, and he
Wow.
was perfectly placed,
Yeah.
and it was quite an experience to look at him. He looked completely like he was alive, except that he
Mm.
wasn't. But yes, there are some people that I guess that's still some people still would like to do that.
Yeah, and I was just looking into it, and it's quite expensive. It's about $700 to start with, even a small animal, and then it goes way up fast from there. It also takes quite a bit of time, and for those who are unfamiliar with even the idea of this, it's a way of taking all the water out of your pet's
Yes,
body, so they're completely desiccated, and I believe they also take out organs and other things that I guess would be difficult to preserve in this way, and replace their eyes with glass that looks very much like the eyes they had when they were living, and then pose them in a
right,
position of your choosing.
right.
And I saw this promotional photo of what looked like a whole bunch of dogs in various poses, and they were all they were all deceased.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very interesting and kind of thought-provoking thing to take a
Yeah.
look at. But we did have a few people, I do know of a couple people who wanted to do that
Mm-hmm.
and felt like that would be the thing to do for them.
For them. And there are some people that will clone.
Yeah,
For
you
animals too.
mentioned that.
And that is tremendously expensive. I do think that's thousands of dollars, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's
Um,
that's an interesting prospect because you're not going to get the same soul.
no, I mean, it's fascinating, but they were
It is.
they could not tolerate that death. And
Yeah,
the family decided that we're going to want him again. And that's what they did. And the hospital had complied. I mean, they gave some DNA, I
they
think,
gave the DNA because
to
it's
the
you're getting an identical twin,
right.
right? That's what you're getting ultimately.
So, I mean, it again, it depends on some people don't want to do anything, and it's okay. And once they're euthanized or they die, then that's it. I mean, I grew up on a farm. All of our dogs were buried. There wasn't any other kind of funeral or anything like that. I mean, that's what happened. Some
Yeah,
people don't want anything, and then others they go to extent of freeze drying or cloning.
yeah,
So it's
yeah. It's
fascinating
like
how they want to deal with that.
what can you do? My chickens are they're my pets. They're family, and one of them died during the winter, and I didn't have any way to bury them. So what
Yeah.
I did actually was I brought the body. We have a fair amount of woods on the property, and there's bobcats and fishers and all. So I brought the chicken's body into the woods, knowing that these animals would eat it because they're obviously going to be particularly hungry during the winter months, and that felt right. And
Well, again,
that's
it's
the
going
whole
back to
thing.
the
Like
soul.
whatever feels right is what you want to do, right?
He went back. The chicken went back to the soil, like you had
Yeah,
said before.
yeah.
But
That's
there's some other things that people can do. Now there are also nose prints now. I don't know if you knew that, like paw
I
prints.
didn't
You
know
can have a nose print. Yeah. Um, you can create a plush animal. You can send a picture, and they will make a plush animal for you.
That's interesting.
You can name a star for your pet, or you
Ah,
can actually launch them into space. I read that one, so I thought that was really interesting.
how
Yeah,
far into space, I wonder.
I didn't go deeply into that article. But the tattoos, people get tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
One person at the group actually became an EMT. For some reason, she felt that she would give back by doing that.
Ah,
And of course, there's donations. But the other thing that has really been taken off quite a bit is jewelry.
huh.
And you can take hair and put it into certain bracelets. You can take ashes and actually they can be infused into stones
Mm,
and in some cases diamonds and
wow.
actually then wear them. Or you can have lockets. A lot of people would take some ashes and put them in lockets.
Wow. In this country, in the Victorian period, it was very common to make artifacts out of the deceased's hair and keep it.
Didn't they
And
have brooches too?
yeah,
That
they did all kinds of
right?
things where
Okay.
they would keep hair, I believe was the extent of it, but they also took pictures of the deceased after they were deceased and hung on to them that way too. So I mean there's all kinds of different ways. We've also seen people who, because they're not sure that they want to have the ritual immediately, they have their animal in a freezer,
That's true.
sometimes for quite a long time. I mean, one of the things that's so striking about this whole matter is that for many people, when a human being dies, there's like a prescribed path that's either part of a community of faith or part of a family tradition. Well, when a pet dies, it's generally much more something you've got to pull together out of your own creativity, your own thoughts. And we've had people, I remember, who would sometimes have almost like a limbo, like they'd have their pet in a freezer for a long, long time because they couldn't approach the idea of that final letting go. And I remember there were conversations, and I'm sure that this goes on in many people's lives. There are conversations about when it's time. And that I often felt like it was kind of a mixed blessing, because I wondered if the people weren't in some way, by doing that, almost like prolonging the severity of early grief. But again, it's just hard to know what's right for any given individual. It's just something you have to go with your own feelings on.
And it doesn't matter. And you could memorialize or do rituals as many times as you want.
Yep.
There's no prescribed thing. I mean, every year you could go to a certain mountain that you and your dog walked in. I mean, it's fine.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with any of this. Another part, and I'd like to read this, but is now there's a lot of online things.
Yes.
Dedications, memorials. This is my little Rosie, and I'm going to. It's hard to see because she's let me get her. She's a black.
Oh, yeah, now I can see. Yep. What a beautiful dog.
But I'm going to read what I wrote when she died, July 9th, and this is our dedication, my family's dedication to her. And it said, "Our beloved Rosie crossed the bridge today in our arms. She was 14 years and 11 months. Rosie is now healthy and frolicking with her two sons, Hank and Eddie. She leaves behind her husband, Jack, her son, Rocky, and two daughters, Molly and Gracie, and adopted daughter, Ellie, and of course, her humans. Rosie was always a big presence in the house. She was loud and stubborn and feisty. Nobody messed with Big Mama. We loved her terribly as she loved us. We are at peace that we could help transition her so that she wouldn't suffer any more from her devastating diseases. We will miss her, but know she will be nestled in our hearts forever."
Oh, that's great. That's so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because it was really important for me to do that. I did it when Hank died too. I could not find his on Facebook, but yeah, I mean, I got a lot of responses. Obviously, people, they understand that, especially for us, you and I, and the people we are with, that they're animal people, and they really understood that that was important for me to do, and really appreciated that, and we're very kind and supportive.
Yeah. Well, I think that maybe we can wrap up on that note. And do you want to give some final thoughts, and then I will as well?
Yeah, I think rituals and memorials are important, and they've always been important. And again, it doesn't matter if you have a full-fledged funeral with a wake, and it doesn't matter if you don't do anything, because that's your choice. It's an individual choice. But whatever you want to do or feel good doing, and with your family, is fine. And there's no right or wrong. There's no amount of time. You could do it for the rest of your life.
That's what I take away from this conversation as well. And you said this earlier, that you can do additional rituals. You can do ritual at anniversaries, birthdays, holidays. You could do a little ritual every day of remembrance. And every time you do that, it helps you to manage the feelings around the loss, and also hold on to the loving memories that will always be with you.
Right, so, bring the animal back.
A great conversation again, being with you, Nancy, and I'll look forward to talking with you and responding to any questions and comments that we may get from viewers or listeners. Thanks again.
Yep. Take care, everyone.